talk about this night much because even saying it out loud makes my chest tighten. But this happened when I was 19, living with my dad in a small town in western Ohio. Our house wasn't haunted, wasn't old, wasn't anything special. Just a regular 2-story place with an unfinished basement no one really went into unless we needed something from the storage shelves. I never thought anything about that basement until the night something started walking behind the concrete walls. It was around 1 a.m. I was up late messing around on my laptop when the power flickered off for half a second. I figured it was just crappy wires. Our house did that sometimes. But the weird thing was, after the lights came back on, I heard this soft, slow scraping onto the floor, like someone dragging their foot across dusty concrete. At first, I thought my dad was downstairs grabbing something from the freezer. But the sound wasn't footsteps exactly. It was inside the wall, like something big was walking in the narrow space behind the drywall. I turned off my TV and just listened. Scrape, scrape, a low, heavy exhale. My stomach dropped because I knew there is no crawl space down there, no passage, no void. The basement walls were packed with insulation and cement. There was no place for anything to walk, but whatever it was moving, slow, heavy, steady, almost like it was pacing the exact outline of the basement. I don't know what pushed me, but I grabbed a flashlight and opened the basement door. The air hitting me felt colder than usual, like walking into a fridge. Each step I took down the wooden staircase felt louder than normal, almost like the house wanted me to hear how empty everything around me was. The basement was pitch black, except the weak light coming from my flashlight. When I reached the bottom step, everything was quiet, dead quiet. But then, from the far corner behind the old storage shelves, tap, like something touching the wall from the other side. "Dad," I whispered, but my voice cracked. Then the scraping started again, slow, dragging, circling the room from behind the walls. My whole body tightened when I realized the scraping was getting closer to me. The sound stopped directly behind the wall closest to the stairs. I backed up so fast I almost tripped. My light hit the concrete wall, and I swear I saw the surface shift outward for half a second. Just a tiny bulge, like something pressed its weight against it from the other side. I froze. Then I heard it, a deep inhale, wet, slow, like whatever was behind there was smelling me. I sprinted upstairs, slammed the door, and locked it. The scraping continued for another 10 minutes, circling underneath me, like something mapping my footsteps. When it finally stopped, I waited hours before falling asleep. The next morning, I told my dad everything. He checked the basement himself, even pulled away one of the insulation panels. What we found made him go pale. Behind the wall, pressed into the insulation, were handprints, but not normal handprints. They were long, crooked, and smeared downward, like whatever placed them had slid its hands along the wall. The concrete behind the insulation had deep gouges, like fingernails had carved into it. Some areas were scratched all the way down to the metal rebar. My dad immediately nailed wooden boards across the open panel and sealed it shut. A week later, we moved. He said it was mold damage. He said it was structural shifting, but the way his voice shook told me he didn't believe a damn word of that. Sometimes late at night, when everything is quiet, I swear I still feel vibrations under the floor, like something still pacing, looking for a way out.
I've lived in some crappy places in my life, but nothing compares to the apartment building I moved into last year in Detroit. It was one of those old brick buildings that looked decent enough from the outside, but inside everything felt tired. The kind of tired that sinks into the walls and never leaves. My apartment was on the second floor, and honestly it wasn't the unit that bothered me. It was the basement, the shared laundry room. I swear from the first day I saw it, something in my body told me that place wasn't right. The basement stairs were narrow, uneven, and the handrail shook like it was going to rip out of the wall. The moment you stepped down there, the smell hit you. This thick, wet, moldy smell that clung to your clothes. I always blamed the pipes or maybe a leak somewhere, but there was another scent buried under it. Something sour, metallic, like old water mixed with something rotten. The first time I went down there, the lights flickered so frequently I thought it was a bad joke, but nobody else seemed bothered. The other tenants just shrugged when I mentioned it, like the flickering was normal, the smell was normal, and the weird humming sound from the boiler room was normal too. I told myself I was being dramatic, but my brain kept telling me something was off. The first actual incident happened around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I had run out of clean clothes and decided to do laundry late. The building was quiet, almost dead silent except for someone's TV faintly muffled through the ceiling. When I got down the stairs, I heard something dragging across the concrete floor in the dark storage area behind the laundry machines. Not like a box shifting, not like pipes. It sounded heavy, slow, like someone dragging one foot behind them. I froze on the last step, listening. The dragging stopped the second I stopped moving. Total silence. I waited maybe 10 seconds, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a tenant moving a chair or bag somewhere in the basement. Finally, I stepped down, turned on the laundry room light, and forced myself to go inside. The dragging didn't start again, but the air felt weirdly colder than usual. I kept looking over my shoulder at that dark storage area. I couldn't see far. The light barely reached back there, but I felt watched the whole time. I finished as fast as I could and got the hell out of there. A week passed with nothing else happening, and I convinced myself I imagined the whole dragging sound. Stress, fatigue, whatever. Then one night around 1 a.m., I heard banging under my apartment floor. Slow, heavy thuds coming from the basement directly beneath my bedroom. It wasn't pipes. It wasn't someone dropping something. These bangs were spaced apart, like footsteps. Big, deliberate footsteps. They moved across the basement slowly, like someone pacing. And then the pacing stopped right under my bed. I sat up, heart pounding, listening so hard my ears hurt. Then something scraped the ceiling under me. Just once, a long, slow drag across the wood. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked my neighbor upstairs, this older dude named Marvin, if he ever heard noises from the basement. He hesitated for a second, then said, "Yeah, sometimes, but don't go down there alone at night. That's my advice." When I asked him why, he just walked back into his apartment and pretended the conversation never happened. A couple days later, I needed clean work clothes again. It was around 8 p.m. when I finally went down. Not too late. Still early enough that someone else might be around. I told myself I'd be fine, but the moment I opened the basement door, it was colder than usual. Not just chilly, unnatural cold, like walking into a place the sun had never touched. The lights flickered immediately, almost like they reacted to me walking in. The laundry room door was open a crack. I swear I had closed it the last time. As I walked inside, something in my peripheral vision moved. Quickly, near the storage area. Not a shadow. Not imagination. Something tall slipped behind one of the shelves. I dropped my laundry basket and backed up toward the stairs, but I didn't hear footsteps. No shuffling. No breathing. Nothing. That silence made it worse. I forced myself to grab my basket and threw my clothes in the washer as fast as I could. Every few seconds, I glanced over my shoulder. I kept expecting something to crawl out of that storage darkness. When I came back down 20 minutes later to put my clothes in the dryer, the laundry room light was off. I know for a fact I left it on. The bulb still had that warm heat glow like it had been turned off recently. I flicked it back on, and the light buzzed before turning solid. That's when I noticed the footprints. Wet footprints. Bare feet. Long, wide, leading out of the storage area, straight to the washer I was using. They stopped right in front of it, like someone had been watching my clothes spin. I stood there frozen. I didn't hear anyone come or go. I didn't hear doors, and there was no way someone walked past me. The basement only had one entrance. That was the night I started doing laundry at work. 3 days later, around midnight, Marvin banged on my door. I opened it and he whispered, "You hear that?" We both stood still. Under the floorboards came this soft dragging sound, slow and steady, circling the basement. Then a low thump, like someone bumping into a machine. Then another, almost like it was feeling its way around. Marvin swallowed and said quietly, "It wasn't like this before last year." I asked him what he meant, but he just said, "Come on," and motioned for me to follow him downstairs. I told him he was insane, but he insisted, saying, "You don't want to find out what it does when you ignore it." That sentence still makes me nauseous. We went downstairs, and right when we reached the bottom step, the dragging stopped. The whole basement went still, too still. The air felt thick and cold, like something just sucked the warmth out. We stepped into the laundry room together. The light flickered violently, like it was struggling to stay on. I heard a faint sound. A breathing sound. Slow, wet breaths. Not from the boiler. Not from pipes. From behind the row of dryers. Marvin whispered, "Don't look directly," but I did, and I saw something crouched behind the machines. At first all I saw was the outline. Tall, way too tall. Bent over like it didn't fit comfortably in that space. Its arms were long, tucked close to its body like it was hiding. And its face. Jesus. Its face was turned toward the wall like it didn't want to be seen. But I saw the skin stretched tight, almost translucent, like it was pulled over bone that didn't match a human skull. Then it moved. Not a turn, not a shift. It snapped its head toward us so fast, the sound cracked the air. Its eyes, if those were eyes, were deep, sunken pits, like holes burrowed into its skull. And it stood up, all the way up. Its head scraped the pipes above it. I grabbed Marvin's arm and whispered, "Run." He didn't hesitate. We bolted up the stairs, and halfway up, the thing let out this low, rattling exhale. Not a scream, not a growl, just this sick, slow breath that sounded wet, like it had fluid in its chest. As we reached the top, something slammed into the bottom step with enough force to shake dust loose from the ceiling. Marvin shoved the basement door closed, and for a full minute, something pressed against it from the other side. The wood bowed inward, like something was pushing it gently, testing it. Then it backed off. We called the police. They checked the basement. Nothing. No footprints. No wet marks. No sign anyone was ever there. The landlord showed up an hour later, annoyed and acting like we wasted everyone's time. But when he went down to inspect it himself, he stayed down there less than 2 minutes before coming back up pale and shaking. He claimed there was a mold problem, and the basement needed to be sealed for safety reasons. The next next day, he locked the basement door with a metal hasp and told all tenants laundry was suspended until further notice. That was 4 months ago. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. Ever since the basement was sealed, the noises didn't stop. They moved. Now, I hear dragging under my hallway late at night, sometimes soft banging under the bathroom floor. Sometimes the pipes rattle even when the heat isn't on, not randomly, but in a rhythm, almost like knocking. And when I walk through my apartment in the dark, sometimes the air gets cold in certain spots, the same cold that used to be in the basement. Sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I hear that same wet, rattling inhale through the vents above my bed, like something is still down there, still hungry, still trying to find a way in. And I swear to God, some nights, when I'm alone and the whole building is silent, I can hear it breathing. My grandparents had a farmhouse that dated back to the 1920s. Huge front porch, creaky floors, dusty attic, the whole vibe. But the basement, it was forbidden. We were never allowed down there. Not for tools, not for storage, not for anything. My grandpa even nailed the door shut when I was 14. I didn't understand why, until the night I pried those nails out and learned exactly what he'd been trying to keep out. One night, when my grandparents were away, my cousin and I were messing around in the house. He dared me to open the basement, something we joked about for years but never done. When I pulled the nails out, I felt this wave of cold air hit my face. Not like basement cold, like cave cold, like something had been sleeping in there for a long, long time. The staircase was narrow and steep. When I shined my flashlight down, the beam got swallowed by the darkness in a way light shouldn't. We went down anyway. That was the mistake. It wasn't a normal basement. The air was thick, humid, and smelled like dirt and metal. The walls were stone, not concrete, and there were scratch marks, deep ones, on nearly every surface. Some were human-shaped, some were not. My cousin whispered, "Dude, someone lived down here." But the scratch marks didn't look like someone trying to escape. They looked like someone trying to get deeper, like they were digging. In the far corner was a hole, 3 feet tall, leading into a pitch-black tunnel carved into the earth. The edges were clawed, like someone used their bare hands. My cousin leaned closer, but I grabbed his arm, because from inside the tunnel, maybe 20 feet down, we heard breathing. Slow, uneven, shaky. But it wasn't just one person. It was two sets of lungs inhaling in perfect sync. Then they exhaled, at the same time. I turned to run, but my cousin froze, staring at the tunnel like he was hypnotized. Then, from the darkness, something crawled forward. Not walking, crawling, fast. I didn't see its face, only its hand. Long, pale fingers digging into the dirt, pulling its body forward like a spider dragging itself out of a grave. I grabbed my cousin by his shirt and hauled him up the stairs. Something slammed into the wall behind us, hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. We got upstairs and shoved the door shut. Before I could grab the nails, something pounded on the other side. Once, twice, then silence. We nailed that door back in place and never spoke of it again. When my grandparents got home, my grandpa pulled me outside. I thought he'd yell at me, but instead he said, "You didn't smell the iron in the air, did you? If you smelled iron, that means it followed you." He ordered my cousin and me never to sleep in the house again. We didn't. 2 years later, the farmhouse got torn down, all except the basement. The construction team refused to touch it after hearing noises underground. They said it sounded like people talking beneath the earth. My cousin has nightmares still, and sometimes, late at night, he wakes up gasping because he swears he hears that synchronized breathing coming from inside his wall. I was 25 when I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find near Chicago. It was one of those places you take because you're desperate, not because it feels right. The landlord showed me the basement unit in under 3 minutes, told me rent was cheap because nobody likes basements, and handed me the key before I even finished walking through. I should have taken that as a sign. The whole basement felt damp and cold in a way that didn't make sense for August, and something about the concrete walls felt like they were holding their breath. I needed a place fast, and the price was too good to question. I convinced myself the weird smell was just old pipes and mildew. My first night there, I realized the basement was a lot stranger than I thought. Around 2 a.m., the air temperature dropped so suddenly that my breath showed in front of me, like I was inside a walk-in freezer. I tried blaming the AC, but the unit wasn't even on. Then I heard this really soft knocking behind the wall above my bed. Not random pipes or settling noises, it was rhythmic. 3 slow taps, a pause, then 3 more. It It was so deliberate my skin crawled instantly. I remember sitting up in bed, holding my breath, trying to tell myself that maybe someone upstairs was hammering something, but the wall behind my head was solid concrete, and the room above me was empty. Still, I stayed awake until almost sunrise, too terrified to move, just waiting for the next tap. The next morning, I stepped outside to get some air and ran into this old woman who lived on the main floor. She stared at me way too long, like she was trying to figure out if I was real. Then she said something that stuck with me in a way I wish it hadn't. She said, "People don't stay long down there. You shouldn't have taken that unit." Before I could even ask what she meant, she turned around and shut her door like she regretted saying anything. I tried to laugh it off, but I swear the way she said it felt like a warning, the kind that comes way too late. My second night was worse. I was brushing my teeth in the tiny bathroom when I heard the basement closet door creak open behind me. No breeze, no vibration, nothing to cause it. The door didn't swing wide, it just stopped halfway, like someone was standing behind it, holding it with their fingertips. I waited a good 30 seconds before I moved. The longer I stared at it, the colder the room got, like the cold was coming from that open space. Finally, I forced myself to touch it and push it open all the way. Nothing inside, just boxes, pipes, and a furnace that looked older than the building itself. But something on the inside of the closet door caught my eye. There were words scratched into the wood, written so unevenly it looked like the person's hand shook while writing them. It said, "He crawls through the vent at night." I froze. I couldn't breathe for a second. That wasn't carved by a kid messing around. The letters were long, ragged, and deep, like whoever wrote it pressed with everything they had. I backed away from the closet so fast I hit the bathroom wall. I told myself it was a prank, some past tenant messing around. But as stupid as it sounds, I taped the vent shut in my bedroom before I went to bed that night, just in case. I was lying in bed around 3 a.m. when I noticed the cold again. It crept in slowly this time. First my hands, then my chest, then the feeling that my breath wasn't the only one in the room. I pulled my blanket up and tried to stay still. That's when I heard the rattling, the softest metal vibration coming from the taped vent. Just one little rattle at first, then another, then something pressed from the other side hard enough to make the tape peel at the corners. I sat up slowly, staring at it. The metal grill shook again, and then two long, pale fingers pushed through the slits. I screamed and bolted out of the room so fast I didn't remember grabbing my keys. I ran outside barefoot and stood on the sidewalk shaking. I swear every passing shadow looked like something was going to crawl out of it. I called the landlord at 3:30 a.m., barely able to speak. He didn't sound concerned at all. He kept saying, "Nothing's wrong with the vents. If you keep causing issues, I'll have to evict you." The complete lack of shock in his voice freaked me out even more, like he'd heard complaints like this before. I slept in my car that night. When I went back in the morning, the tape on the vent was torn clean down the middle. Not peeled, torn, and there were tiny scratches all around the metal grill, the kind that looked like nails. I packed a few of my things and planned to move out that day, but curiosity, or maybe stupidity, made me go ask that old woman again what she meant when she said people don't stay long. When she opened the door, she looked startled, like she expected someone else. When I asked her about the basement again, she hesitated for a long time. Finally, she said, "The man who built this place? He lived down there when the rest of the house was still being finished. Nobody ever found his body when he disappeared. Not officially." She leaned in close like someone else might hear. But the tenants kept reporting noises in the vents, scraping, crawling, breathing. Most left within weeks. Your landlord doesn't tell people that. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just me. It happened before. I moved out that same morning. I didn't even take half my stuff. Just whatever I could grab fast. I told myself it was over. I told myself I'd never think about that basement again. But 2 months later, I ran into that same old woman while visiting a friend near the area. She asked if anything followed me. Asked it so casually it made my blood run cold. When I asked what she meant, she said, "Most people who live down there heard him for a few nights after they left. Usually stops after a week or two." That night, lying in my new place, top floor, no vents near the floor, no shared walls, I woke up to the sound of something metal rattling, not loudly, just enough to make me sit up straight in the dark. It was coming from the heater vent above my bed. Slow, rhythmic, like something testing the metal, just like before. I didn't sleep that night, and even now, years later, every winter when the heater kicks on and the vents expand with heat, I swear I hear something underneath the natural noise. Something moving, something crawling, something patient. I don't know what I saw in that basement vent. I don't know what those fingers belong to, but I know for a fact that nothing human moves like that. Nothing human breathes like that, and nothing human scratches its way through metal trying to get into your room. Sometimes I think about that carved message on the closet door, about how deep the letters were, about how shaky the handwriting looked, like the person writing it was terrified, writing as fast as they could. He crawls through the vent at night, and the worst part is, I believe every word of it.